Hey everyone, I am your astrologer Wonder Girl, helping you to live in tune with the natural cycles of the moon. This is your astrology horoscope for the full moon in Aries, which occurs on Sunday, October 9th, 2022 at 4:54 p.m. Eastern Time or 1:54 p.m. Pacific Time. Now, what I think is going on at this full moon in Aries is that we're fundamentally changing as individuals here to want, desire, value, and be different, and to want, desire, and value more rest or relaxation. I think kindness and compassion than we have in a very long time. And I believe that is very frustrating for us, confusing that this is who we're becoming, and disorienting that I think is creating a lot of inner turmoil, I should note, and impatience, perhaps, that we're going to just have to work through, I think, and give ourselves the time here in order to process all of this. So that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. If you want to hear more about that, please do stay tuned, because I'm going to hop into it right now. In order to get started, though, what I like to do first is, of course, just place on the chart what it is that I'm referring to here so that you can see it and follow along with me. So let me do that now. Excuse me. This video is for the full moon in Aries, which occurs on Sunday, October 9th, 2022. As a result, I've adjusted the chart accordingly. Here is the sun in Libra, making an exact opposition over here to the moon in Aries. And when the sun opposes the moon, or rather the moon opposes the sun, that is considered a full moon here. Okay. What are full moons all about now? Well, full moons are all about stepping into something that we have been working towards for quite some time. Not only that, but they're also about completing things, right? In order to step into something, you got to kind of finish something else as well. So I think that's a lot of what's going on. Not only that, but I also need to note as well that full moons, because that's when the moon is the brightest in the sky, are also a lot about illuminating things or bringing things to light that we might not have seen before, okay? So that's what is going on. Now, what exactly are we stepping into, completing, or getting a little bit more clarity and insight on? That's going to be Aries here, because that's the sign that the full moon is in. What is Aries about? Well, a few things here. Aries is a Mars ruled sign. Mars has a lot to do with our identity, who we are, and also our actions, our behaviors, how we act out our identity to do things that are important to us here as we move forward. Not only is it about that, but I should also note as well, with Aries being the first sign of the zodiac, first signs, right, start new cycles. It's a lot about a new identity here, or a new and different way of behaving here as we move forward. Not only that, but Aries is a fire sign, and fire signs do tend to be a little more passionate, can be a little bit more optimistic at times as well. So what does that mean to me? I guess to bring it together so far, what that means to me is that at this full moon in Aries, we're really trying to step into a new and different identity and new and different behaviors here, and have more courage, if you will. Aries can have courage and excitement and optimism about this process. And we're also trying to release an old identity and old behaviors here, and get more illumination and clarity on what exactly is shifting and going on here. Okay. That's it, because that's all I'm going to say for now about the big theme here of this full moon in Aries. I just like to go back in time for a minute before I go forwards here to give you more specifics. And I like to go back in time just to give you the context here about this full moon, and about how we got here, and about why this is now coming up in order for us to live through and experience. Okay, and to go back in time, I'm going to go back to just a few random points over the course of the past few years, just to kind of make this quick for you. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to start with this very significant alignment, which occurred from January to April of 2020 here. Let me write it on the chart. That was when Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter all came conjunct here around the end degrees of Capricorn. That is a very significant alignment, because it includes both Saturn, Pluto, all of Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter, which are all pretty big deals. And because Saturn and Pluto in particular only come conjunct about every 35 years, and not always in the same sign. So this was very significant here. What is the significant thing about it? Well, it's all about Pluto wants change, Jupiter, very big change, and Saturn, which is correlated to Capricorn in the structure of our lives. I should also note as well, these are very unpleasant, Saturn and Pluto to be together. So what that means to me is that in April of 2020, January to April of 2020, what we realized is that there was something in our lives that was unpleasant, that was off, and I think had been for many decades prior, that we now needed to make big change in the structure of our lives here in order to overcome here so that we could move forward. Not only that, but I believe that after that point, April of 2020 to really the beginning of this year, April, I want to say April, May here of 2022, we spent doing that. So from April of 2020 to May of 2022, which was the new moon solar eclipse in Taurus, we spent making these changes, big ones, in the structure of our lives to overcome this nasty stuff that we didn't like here and move forward, which was 2 years. And by the time we got to May 2022 this year, at the new moon solar eclipse in Taurus, I think we started to feel a little bit better. We started to feel like some of our hard efforts to change our lives had started to pay off, not in a huge way. There's something about Taurus that's very basic, very simple, not in a huge way, but we started to feel like our efforts started to pay off to give us some sort of little stronghold and a different experience of life that was more abundant, Taurus, more fertile here, and more in tune with our needs and values, which was very, very good. But as we started in May of 2022 to move forward on this little new and better experience that was starting to arrive in a more tangible way, I think we ran into some difficulties, especially 2 weeks later. I believe it was March, April, May. Yeah, I think it was still May. 2 weeks later here at the full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio. Okay, and at that full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio, I think what we realized is that we were in a new experience of life, but we were having difficulty moving forward because we're still trying to do the new experience of life by the old ways. Here in the old ways were one where we had very tumultuous emotions, or where we were very intertwined with other people here, and we're constantly making changes here, and that wasn't going to work for the new lifestyle, and that the new lifestyle needed new behaviors where we had more stable emotions, where we were more calm, and where we were more independent and self-reliant here, and confident in who we were, and we're more in tune with our needs and values, and went about things, yeah, in a more slower, stable kind of way, where we were also, I need to note, saving a bit more money as well. Okay. That's what we realized then. And I think that was a great thing for us to realize in May of 2022. But even though that was a great thing for us to realize, it took us some time to really get that through our heads, you know, because it was such a different paradigm from what we're used to, this slow, stable, secure lifestyle, in order for us to move it forward. Okay, it kind of took us some time to get it through our heads, but I think we eventually did kind of get it through our heads here, August of this year, 2022. Okay, we had Mars, Uranus, and the North Node all come conjunct in Taurus, which is a bit of a rare and unique alignment here. At the same time, we had a new moon in Leo. And that to me was about us more fully embodying with the Mars here a different lifestyle and different actions that are slow, stable, secure, self-reliant, that the new lifestyle needed to thrive. Not only that, but it was also about us initiating things in this different lifestyle, slow, stable, secure, to kind of improve our lives now and take them to the next level, and initiating things that I think we really wanted to do around May and April of this year, but maybe felt unable to in some kind of way. And I think that those actions in August 2022 that we did, slow, stable, and secure, to improve our lives even more after the mess of 2020, to make them better, worked out okay. But I think as we started to do more things, especially when Mercury went retrograde, September-ish, I think we then started to go a little overboard with Mercury retrograde in Gemini and in Virgo and Libra, and lose balance, where we started to work too hard to be slow, stable, secure, and to fix our situations and to get them where we needed to be. And we started to be too critical of ourselves and other people here throughout this process, which just wasn't working for us. And I think created a lot of issues like burnout, overwhelm, exhaustion, and arguments here. And because we were doing some things that were good for us, but I think we just started to get too critical and too hard and work too much and get a bunch of issues. What we then realized at the new moon in Libra 2 weeks prior to this, also in September, is that we needed to fix that, and we needed to rebalance our behaviors here to improve our lives, so that we're not working too hard, right? And so that we're not being too critical here, and so that we're balancing it with the opposite behaviors, which are resting and relaxing and being kinder and compassionate here to ourselves and others. And I believe that over the course of the past 2 weeks, we've done that. We've rebalanced our situations here so that we're still trying to improve them in a slow, stable, and secure way, but in a way that's more restful, relaxed, kind, and compassionate here, which is very, very good. And because of that, now at this full moon in Aries, which is what this video is for here in October, we're trying to release the old identity here and release the old identity and the old behaviors that were still fast and intertwined with all these other people and spending money and crazy. And we're also trying to release the old behaviors here that are overworked and critical. And not only are we trying to release that identity, but we're also trying to step into a new identity here that's, again, more restful, relaxed, kind, and compassionate, and stable, secure, to bring more of that together here and to get more courage to do that and more optimism here about the process as we move forward. Okay. And that's it. Because that's all I'm going to say about the context here of this time period. I'm just going to repeat that one more time very quickly here before I move on. So let me do that now. What I think is the bigger picture, the larger context of this full moon in Aries is that we're trying to release an old identity in which we were going fast, changing too much, too intertwined with other people here, losing money, spending money here, and in which we were overworking or too critical of ourselves and others. And we're also trying to adopt a new identity, right? Or replace it with a new identity and new behaviors here that are more stable, secure, slow, self-reliant, and also kind, compassionate, restful, and relaxed here as we move forward and to get more of the, the courage and strength to make this transition and also more of the clarity about it as well as we move onwards. Okay. And that's it. Because that's it, I'm now going to zoom in a little bit to talk more specifically here about this full moon itself and about the aspects in particular that it is making. Okay. And what do I want to start with here? Maybe I'll start with here for a minute with the sun. Okay. We've got in this full moon, here it is in the chart, we've got the sun in Libra opposite the moon in Aries. That's the full moon. But on this one end, we've got the sun and Libra here, conjunct Venus and Libra. I want to start with that. What is that about? This to me is a good thing here because Venus does like to be in Libra. That's its home sign here where it functions very, very well. What is that about? Well, Libra is a lot about calm and ease, peace and harmony. I also see it a little more of a restful and relaxed sign here being ruled by Venus. And not only that, it's also about balance as well. So what that does mean to me, I guess to start right off with here, is that at this full moon in Aries, we have achieved here or are starting to achieve more calm, ease, rest, relaxation, kindness, right? Libra's very fair when it comes to relationships, kindness here, balance and harmony within our situations and within a different experience, right? These different behaviors that I think are very, very good. Okay. The next thing that I want to mention here is going to be the opposite, because even though the sun is conjunct Venus here on this side, this full moon is very interesting because it is conjunct Chiron here on the other side, which is of course opposite the sun and soon to be Venus as well. And this is not as pleasant because even though Venus is about like beauty and ease and peace, Chiron is a different story. Chiron has a lot to do with fears and insecurities and triggers here that is going on. And it's in Aries, which is a lot about this new identity and these new actions and new behaviors that it is that we're adopting. So what does that mean to me to continue bringing this together so far? What it means to me is that at this full moon in Aries, I believe we are in fact achieving some sort of calm, rest, relaxation, kindness, compassion, peace, and balance in our lives that we need here in this different lifestyle here in order for us to move forward successfully. But even though we're adopting these different behaviors, which are very, very good here, I think it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for us to be this different person, to do things in a different way here, and to let go of an old identity here, to let go of an old way of being that has happened. It's very uncomfortable for us, and it feels very, very triggering here in some kind of way as well, especially too with the Aries influence, because I think we might rather be doing more things, right? We might rather be doing more things or going faster or doing all of this other stuff here that could be kind of hard. And not only is that difficult as well, but it's also difficult too because at the time of this full moon, we've got Mars here in Gemini, currently in pre-retrograde shadow, making a square over here to Neptune and Pisces, okay, which Mars is going to retrograde back and forth over. And this is a bit of a challenging thing here because Mars is in pre-retrograde shadow. And by the way, it's the ruler of the full moon in Aries, which is a Mars-ruled sign. And because it's making a square, which is a hard aspect, and because Neptune is involved. And Neptune just tends to be difficult because it's a planet that's further away from where we live, and therefore just more difficult for us as humans here on Earth to understand. So this is also a challenge. What is the challenge? Well, Neptune has a tendency, especially both of these planets being immutable signs, to kind of shift things, and change things, and make them different, and to wipe away things, which I think has already been clear enough with what's going on with the full moon. But not only that, it can also make things confusing, right? With the Neptune, that's a keyword that I use for Neptune, because when you're in the middle of shifting things, of a shift, especially here, of releasing an old identity and old behaviors and stepping into new ones that are different, that you haven't done and that you're not used to doing, right? It's confusing. It's confusing for you, especially confusing when it comes to Mars, again, in our behaviors and our identity and who we are, and also in Gemini and what to think and how to make sense of our lives and what's happening here that is going on. Not only can this indicate confusion that is happening as things shift here, but it can also indicate as well some kind of sensitivity and emotion, usually the not so pleasant emotions here that's going on, nostalgia. Sometimes you can get regret that can come up with this as well. Not only can it bring that, but it can also bring a feeling of being stuck. I want to do stuff, but I'm stuck as well. So what does this mean to, one other thing, with the Mars and Gemini, it can also bring, a lot of nervous energy, I should note as well, that can be happening because Gemini can be very mental and have a lot going on there. So what that means to me, I guess, to bring it together so far is that what is happening at this full moon in Aries is that we really are, I think, adopting new behaviors that are more kind, compassionate, restful, relaxed, even stable, secure, thrifty, self-reliant, which is what I've been talking about for a while. We really are doing that here. And I think we are doing it in the right proportions, in a more balanced way with some of our other behaviors, which is good, which is what we need right now in order to move forward. But even though that is, happening, it just feels really uncomfortable. It feels really uncomfortable for us to adopt these new behaviors here because it's such a big shift. It's such a drastic shift for us and how we are used to behaving for so long here. And because it feels foreign, it feels unusual, it feels different, and it's not allowing us, to move as quickly as we once might have liked to have moved in the past. And because of that, we're feeling confused, I think sad, emotional, nostalgic. Maybe some of you are regretful here, frustrated, anxious. That could be going on here as well. Maybe even other words I can add with this: overwhelmed, exhausted from all this stuff that's happening that's unpleasant. Okay. Yeah, and just be feeling stuck. I think that too, I should note, can be even more overwhelming because of the next alignment that I want to mention as well. And that's going to be Pluto, which went direct right around this full moon here in Capricorn. And while I do really like this, I mostly like when planets go direct because it brings forward momentum in some area of our life. In the first few days and weeks a planet goes direct, it can be a little much. It can be a little much because it's stationing in the sky, appearing to stand still. And so it can bring a bunch of energy, too much energy, as we try to figure that out. And what Pluto can be, even though I think this is definitely going to be a good thing leading up to a solar eclipse in its sign, but Pluto can be a lot about deep emotions about ourselves, about the world, about what's going on, about how things are happening here, about what we desire, about what we want for life. Not only is Pluto about that, but it's also as well about change and transformation within our who we are and within our emotions and within our soul as well. So what that means to me, I guess, to continue bringing it together here, is that we are adopting different behaviors in life that are more restful, relaxed, kind, and compassionate, and yes, stable, secure, thrifty, self-reliant, etc., which I've been talking about in a lot of my videos. We are doing it, and we are doing it, I think, in the right proportions, in a more balanced way. But even though we're doing it, it's very uncomfortable, because resting, relaxing, and being kind and compassionate here, stable and secure, is not what we're used to, and is not the way we've been living life for so many months and years prior to this, and is not allowing us to do the things we want to do, right? If we're being resting and relaxing, so we're not doing stuff, and I think it's really confusing and disorienting to us, because it's so new and foreign and really frustrating here, and making us anxious, nervous, overwhelmed, exhausted, and feel stuck here. And I think that's triggering a lot of deep and uncomfortable emotions here within our soul that are hard to handle about our situation here, and about this big change here that's transpiring, that just a little hard to handle. I think, well, that's an understatement. I think it's very hard to handle that's going on. Okay, and because that's what's happening, I'm now going to give you some advice here, and I want to give you some advice with this alignment, starting with the Pluto first, because even though whenever a planet stations direct, it can bring an unusual amount of focus to that planet that can be too much, overwhelming at first. As the planet starts to regain its normal motion or its normal speed, especially now that it's direct, it can be a bit more useful or a bit more helpful here. And so it's eventually, to me, going to be a good thing. What is the way that Pluto can be a good thing? Well, Pluto, to me, has a lot to do with the truth of who we are, deep down, in our soul, the truth of our deepest desires here. Not only that, but I do see Pluto also very connected to the spiritual realms, or to the other realms as well. Because a lot of times when you get in touch with the truth of your soul, you also get in touch with the divine as well. So I see them to be related. Not only that, but I also do see Pluto as well about our own personal power and our own personal strength, and stepping into that, because it has to do with our soul and with our desire, which breeds power and strength within our own selves as well. And not only that, but Pluto has to do with permanent change and transformation here as well. And the time that takes, because permanent change and transformation doesn't happen overnight. So what that means to me here is that some of the advice, I'm going to give you a little bit more, but some of the advice for this full moon here is to use this opportunity, right? You use this frustration that you have about who you're becoming and how you're doing differently, and this confusion and all these emotions, to use this as an opportunity here to understand yourself better, and who you are better, and what you want and what you desire better, and to take the time, right? I think there's a patience aspect, to take the time to go deeper into your soul, to understand why you're feeling triggered, who you want to be next, what's going on, and to connect with the divine here about your next steps here. Because I think you taking the time, to go deep and to figure out, who do you really want to be? What is really going on? What are you really scared of? Pluto will ask all these questions here, and to really confront those and face those, and of course bring the divine into the picture, I think is going to help you better make this transition here to these new behaviors, because I don't think we're going back, and to approach it with, I think, more strength and more power, especially 2 weeks from now, as we get to that solar eclipse in Pluto's sign here in Scorpio. Okay, so that's a big part of the advice. You gotta don't escape the frustration. Don't escape the frustration. You gotta face it head on, to figure out why you're feeling what you're feeling, and to get to the bottom of it, to tap into your personal power and strength. Okay. Another piece of advice that I might give you too is another thing with this full moon, because we've got the sun here in Libra making a trine over here to Saturn in Aquarius, and a trine on the other side over here to Mars in Gemini, which are both kind of trining each other as a grand air trine that's happening. And I also think this is helpful as well to get these 3 air signs all teaming up here with each other. And what can this be about? Well, air signs sure are about thinking in some way, but they're also a lot about, especially with the Aquarius, thinking in different ways, getting unique solutions, unique ideas, being open to what's foreign, to what's alien, with some of the Aquarius influence here. And Gemini is, to me, a very open-minded sign. Gemini doesn't have all these preconceived notions and ideas of like how things should be and how things were. Gemini, I think, is more open-minded and just allows things to be what they are as they move forward. And Libra can be a bit more reasonable, right, about all this stuff. And so not only is the advice, I think, for this full moon in Aries here to not hide and run away from these intense emotions about this new person you're becoming, but to go straight in to your soul to understand, why are you afraid? What is stopping you from being what you want, being this different person, being this different way here, and to understand the truth of who you are and to connect with the divine here so that you can step into your personal power and strength, but to not be afraid to see yourself in a different way. See yourself in a different way here that's different than who you thought you would be or who you always were, and to be open to a different version of yourself emerging without the old beliefs and ideas and expectations of how you thought that things should go here. Because when you go deep into your soul to analyze who you want to be next and what you're afraid of when it comes to changing, you may get answers you didn't intend. You may get answers from your soul, from the divine, that you didn't expect to get about yourself and how you're changing. You need to be open to those and to seeing things in a different way so that you don't push them away here as well. Okay, so that's definitely a piece of advice here. Not only that, but I should note that the Libra here, where Venus is, can be a lot about relationships. And to me, the air signs can be kind of people-oriented. In some kind of way, especially too with Aquarius being about humanity, and the collective, and Gemini being correlated to 2 twins. So another thing that might also help you is not only for you to go deep within, I think your own soul to figure out like what is going on here and why you're afraid and who you want to be next and what's important to you and what you desire, and to not be afraid to reconceptualize who you are and to be open to whatever answers arise. But what might also help is for you to get feedback from other people as well about what's going on, and to maybe have some conversations there, not conversations with other people to decide and make decisions and to prove, but just conversations to kind of explore like and get feedback on like what you're thinking, what you're feeling, because that may help you probe deeper to understand here what's going on and what's important to you from here on out. Okay. And I think that's all that I want to say about this full moon in Aries. Because that's it, I'm now just going to repeat those things one more time without the astrological jargon so you can get a better sense of what I think is going on here. So let me do that now. What I think is going on at this full moon in Aries here is that we are trying to release an old identity in which we were working too hard and being too critical of others and feeling too emotional and stressed and tumultuous here, and step into a new identity where we're being kinder, compassionate, restful, relaxed, and more stable, secure, independent, self-reliant here as we move forward. But it's very difficult for us to do that. And it's very difficult for us to do that because being slow, stable, kind, compassionate, resting, and relaxing isn't helping us get anything done that we want to get done here. And because it's so foreign to us and not who we're used to being, and I think is bringing a massive shift within our soul and within our identity that is very overwhelming, confusing, intense, exhausting, anxiety inducing here that's going on, that's just like relentless. That just is bringing a lot of strong feelings, I think impatience and restlessness here, that's unpleasant. And because we're really trying to release an old identity and step into a new one that's supposed to be better for us, but we're having a lot of difficulty doing that in a peaceful way, what really I think needs to happen at this full moon in Aries is that we need to see this actually as a gift and an opportunity to learn about ourselves more and to know ourselves better and to go deeper, to more deeply understand why we're afraid of becoming new and different and why we're holding on to this old identity and what we want next, and what we truly desire from here on out, and to connect with the divine and to step more into our power and strength here. And in order for us to, dig deep in the truth of our soul and get insights that we may need to loosen up on our expectations here and on our ideas of who we thought we should be, what we thought we would learn, and be more open-minded and get perhaps just some feedback from other people to help inspire us or guide us on a better path of self-knowledge here, so that we can stop being afraid here and make these necessary shifts within ourselves as we move onwards. Okay, and that's it. Anything else that I want to add? It hit me as I was going through this video that maybe I didn't quite explain here why these new behaviors are necessary, right? Like that's the whole point of this full moon in Aries, is that we're getting new behaviors that in particular are more restful, relaxed, kind and compassionate, and also stable, secure, self-reliant, which is what I've been talking about since the solar eclipse in Taurus at the beginning of this year. Why are these the behaviors here that are needed? Well, in terms of the slow, stable, secure, thrifty, self-reliant, that conversation, we need to get those behaviors because those behaviors are what is more conducive to building something strong, especially when we're just at the beginning of something and making it grow, right? When you don't know who you are or what you're doing, especially after totally destroying everything in our lives since 2020 with the Saturn Pluto stuff, you don't want to go fast. You don't want to be hasty. You don't want to, get intimately entwined with tons of people because you don't know who you are. You don't know what's going to work. You want to go slower and self-reliant and be more stable there, okay? So why are those some behaviors that we need still to adopt? Because those are the ones more conducive to life, to sustaining life, especially because those do correlate to Taurus, which is about sustaining life and is the second sign of the zodiac. Why do we need these other behaviors now that are restful, relaxed, kind, and compassionate? Why do we need and I should also know more in tune with the divine and with our intuition? Why do we need those behaviors here as well? Well, always having to work all the time and always having to be on all the time is not healthy. That's also the hallmark of trauma from the past and of old times. I think it feels normal. I think it feels normal to us now because that's how we've been living for so long because of trauma in our lives and because of society, right? That's what society values today. You got to go to work. You got to get a job. You got to pay these bills. If you don't do it right, you're going to get fired. I think the reason why we need to rest and relax and be kind and compassionate is because that is the way life, to be honest with you, should be when life is good. When life is good, you shouldn't be overworking. You shouldn't be overstressing. You shouldn't be getting mean at everyone all the time for all these things that they're doing and being critical about all of this stuff. Like when life is good and when you're more healed, you're more restful, relaxed, and kind and compassionate. So I think that's also another reason why these are now behaviors that we need so that we can heal here and grow. I think another reason why we need those behaviors as well is because because I think the world has been missing them for a long time, right? Especially with Pluto in Capricorn and the opposite point of Pluto being in Cancer, and Cancer can be very caring and sensitive as well. I think that also the world hasn't been having these behaviors with all the focus on working and all this other stuff. I think that these behaviors have been missing for a very, very long time. And now we need to kind of bring these in order to rebalance ourselves in the collective. I think another reason why we need these more restful, relaxed, kind, and compassionate behaviors as well is so that we can hear the truth of our own soul, right? And so that we can get in touch with ourselves and the divine and start living authentically, especially with, the Saturn in Aquarius, so that we can start living more authentically to who we are, because when we're so busy working and stressing that we have no time to think about who we are, what's authentic, because we're so wrapped up in this other stuff. So I think it's also a need to get more in touch with our soul and who we are, as well, that these are needed. So I thought I would say that, because I don't know if that's what some of you were wondering here. Also, maybe another reason why we need the restful, relaxed, kind, and compassionate too is because overworking sometimes can also stifle growth. Sometimes when you're working too hard and being too critical, it can prevent things from growing and blossoming, because sometimes things just need space and time to grow as well. So keep that in mind. Here we're at this full moon, we need to release old behaviors and adopt new behaviors. The new behaviors that we're adopting are slow, stable, secure, thrifty, self-reliant, still, okay, that didn't go away yet, okay, and also kind, compassionate, restful, and relaxed, because that's what the situation needs now in order for us to heal and grow here and rebalance, the world and our lives in a better way, and be more of our authentic self and understand who that is. Okay. What else do I want to say? Another thing that I want to note here is that the rejection, right, of these behaviors is somewhat normal, especially the rest and relaxing and the kind and compassionate one. And even though it's an annoying process, like an annoying thing to feel, I think is somewhat normal, right? If we haven't been stable and secure, but especially restful, relaxed, kind, and compassionate for a very, very, very long time, and then all of a sudden we start to be that way, right? It's normal to be confused. It's normal to feel frustrated here. It's normal to question everything. Who am I now? How do I do things in this different way? What does that mean? Like, it's as frustrating as it is, like, it's totally normal for that to happen. So just because it's new, it's different, out of our comfort zone here, and kind of the opposite of what we've been used to. So you also need to realize that these new behaviors are needed to build our situations in a healthy way and restore equilibrium to ourselves and the world and the collective here. But even though they're needed, it's not going to feel that comfortable, and it's normal for it to not feel comfortable when we haven't done it for so long. And so just be aware of that. The other thing that I want to note too is that because it's normal for it to not feel comfortable, right? There's no need to feel afraid. There's no need to feel afraid of it, because there is a lot of weird emotional anxiety, frustration, inner tension going on. There's no need to feel afraid of it. Here, this is normal. A matter of fact, I think being afraid of it might actually delay it from happening. So my next thought is, not only is it normal to reject these things or to be afraid of them here, not afraid. Not only is it normal to reject these behaviors or to be startled by them, but it doesn't help to be afraid of them, because when you're afraid of them, you might run away, right? When you're afraid of something, you want to avoid it, you want to ignore it. I think the best way to handle this situation is to face it head on. With the Pluto, and again, we're coming up to a solar eclipse in Scorpio 2 weeks from now, is to face it head on, and not by confronting other people. I don't think this has to do with other people, with the Aries influence, by confronting yourself about who you are and what you want and what's important to you, and what you're like. That is the best way to face it head on, because the transformation that needs to occur is not with sure, other people need to make a lot of people, the collective needs to make the transformation, but the transformations are made through individuals. Collective transformations are made through individuals. So I think there's a need for each of us to go inwards, to ask ourselves the questions here about who we are and what we want, and to face it, because through us asking the questions, of like, why am I this way? Why am I scared? That's what brings healing, and that's what brings transformation, because we're no longer fighting it, we're no longer running away, but we're able to kind of see these things for what they are, and to get clarity, which there is an opportunity for with the full moon and with the Pluto direct here. And we need to be open to the answers we receive, even if they're not what we thought that we would. Because maybe I should note, maybe there are some of you who in a million years, never thought that you would rest and relax and be kind and compassionate. Maybe there are some of you who never thought that. You always thought that you were going to work the rest of your life at this certain job in this certain way. And then all of a sudden, over the course of the past few weeks and year or two, you realized that like you don't want this job anymore. Or you don't want this corporate job and you want to do this other thing instead. That's like kind of different, like I think that's happening with a lot of people, is that a lot of people at this time are starting to realize that they're wanting things that are totally different than what they thought that they would want before, which I think does have a lot to do with rest, relaxation, work and stuff, but could be other areas too. And so not only, right, is there the need to not be afraid. It's normal when you're transitioning, for it to feel weird and uncomfortable and uncertain of what to do next, but and to go deep, to ask yourself these hard questions about what you want and what you're afraid of here, because that's where the true healing is going to come. But to be okay if your soul, or the divine starts to tell you that you want to be something different. There's nothing wrong with changing, A matter of fact, I think that changing is a symbol of growth, of evolution, right? Changing is, to me, like a really beautiful thing, because it means that you've learned what has worked for you, you've learned what hasn't worked for you, and you've made adjustments here in order to grow and survive and adapt better to your environment. So I think maybe that's the last point that I'll add on here. This is normal for this weird thing to happen. Don't be afraid to face it head on and ask yourself the hard questions, and then be open to what you receive here. Even if what your soul is telling you is something very different than you thought you would have wanted many months and years ago, and don't be afraid to go with it, because changing is a symbol of growth. A lot of times in society, we think the opposite. Oh, you've changed, you're different. But a lot of times changing is a good thing. Like that's, I think, part of what we're here to do, in our lifetimes, is to change, is to grow. And I think there's also a need to become more accepting of that, and to not try to double down on these old behaviors here, because to not try to double down, because these old behaviors are just going to keep us stuck. And maybe there probably could be a tendency too with the Pluto for some of you to want to revert back into old behaviors at this time, but we really have to move on and to be different. And I think that this is a full moon really trying to get us to totally reconceptualize, who we are and how we approach the world. Okay, and that's it. Because that's all I'm going to say there, I'm just going to take a look at your inside degrees. They were not written by me. They were written by someone else named Elias Lonsdale, who channeled the meanings of each of the degrees from spirit. But I really love to look at these because I find them very insightful and accurate. Okay, now the full moon is at 16 degrees Aries. But I believe I liked 17 and 18. Oh, sorry. No. The full moon is at 16 degrees Aries. A lot of times the degree before, the degree of, and the degree after are relevant. However, I'm not really the biggest fan of Aries 15. If you would like to read it, feel free to. I'll leave it up here on the screen so that you can pause the video. Here, I do think that some of you will probably find it interesting and relevant, but it's just not one I feel super called to. The one I like here is 16 and 17. Okay, so let's look at that. 16 says genius, an extraordinary consciousness, and a threefold sweep of the phases of intelligence coming into its fullest domain. At first, the naive confidence in the mental powers, but later on there creeps in, and always was there hovering, the terrible knowledge that you know nothing, understand even less, and are operating in the dark. This can be terrifying, but is also redemptive. Because after that comes a synthesis, a cooking up of the raw intelligence into a vital grasp of the essentials in life, and in particular of your own place in this world. So what that means to me here is that I think there's a process that's been going on within ourselves. I think, to be honest with you, it's probably been going on for a few years now, since 2020, but is coming to a head, I suppose, at this full moon. And what this process is, I think, has been us more fully trying to understand ourself and our purpose, and who we are and who we're here for. I think that's probably been what's going on then, but still now. And I like this degree because it explains that there's a process when we're trying to understand who we are. There first comes, in this 3-part process that it explained, there first comes this naive confidence where you think you know who you are, you think you know what you're doing, you think you know how to behave and who you are and what's happening. Then as you move forward throughout the process, you then get to number 2, and as you grow and learn more things and you realize you really don't know anything. You thought you knew stuff, but you really don't know anything, and the world is much bigger and vaster. And then after that, you get to the third part that comes of you searching for answers, which comes, I think, like a combination of both, where you know what you know and what you don't know, you start to synthesize here to make meanings for yourself, or to get insight from a divine spiritual nature here to give you more complete and full answers about yourself and your place in the world. And I think that's been going on for a while, but I think especially at this full moon in Aries, it's coming to a head. And what we're realizing now, to put it in context of this full moon, I think what we're realizing first at this full moon in Aries is that we thought we knew who we were. We thought we knew who we were and what to do and how to behave in life and the way the world worked. We thought we knew that we're always going to be this way. We're always going to do this. We're always going to have this job, this career, this relationship, this thing. And as we move further, throughout, I feel more of the energy of the full moon in Aries, we're starting to realize that that's not true, that who we thought we were, doesn't really apply anymore. Now we're changing, and now we're becoming different here in a way that's really scary and unknown. And what needs to happen after this, that I think this full moon is leading us to, is that we need to form some kind of synthesis, I think, and to use what we do know about ourselves that is true, and to be open to things that we don't know, and to kind of merge the two together to make some kind of different idea or meaning about ourselves and who we're becoming here that is more in tune with our design, more in tune with our purpose here as we move forward. So I like that, to kind of show the evolution of ourselves over the course of the past few years, but especially at this full moon. We thought we knew who we were and how to behave, but all of a sudden at this full moon, we're realizing we don't know who we are and how to behave. And what we need to do is, number 3, come up with a different way of behaving and identifying based on all that we've learned, which is what I think I was trying to convey here, especially with the Pluto stuff, right? You have to go deep to the truth of your soul to figure out who you want to be and how to put this other stuff together here as you move onwards. Okay. So that's what I get from that. What it also indicates to me is that on the other side, right, of all of, this, soul searching or whatever, that we are going to be able to find our own place in the world, something that works for us. Right? So that was kind of hopeful there at the end. I then want to look at the next degree here, Aries 17, which I also liked. It says, cast into exile, sworn into silence, held to an ancient code to be a watcher, a perfect witness to the inward reverberations of all things. Outward events and experiences are gone, mean nothing here. So what that means to me is that even though at this full moon in Aries, we are going from thinking we know who we are to not knowing who we are at all, to cooking up a new sense of self here that's more synthesized, more true to who we really are, that in the meantime, we could feel like we're in exile, and unable to do anything and stuck, to just stuck as we try to witness and to understand and to learn what's going on. And I think what it continues to mention is that that's okay, right? All that counts is for you to sense into things, sense into what you're feeling, sense into what's going on here, not fix it, not to sense into it here, to remember the true essence of what's gone on, of what's forgotten, of who you used to be, of what's the truth of your soul here in order to do that. Yeah. Maybe lonely, maybe a little bit of sorrow there stuck, but is going to help. Okay. So I think that's what I see there. We thought we knew who we were and how to behave in life. We don't anymore, now that the world and life is changing. And we got to formulate another identity, another way of behaving that's more true to who we are. And it's going to happen, if we allow it to happen. But even though it's going to happen, the process could feel like we're stuck or slow or can't do anything, trapped in a lot of ways, maybe a little bit of sorrow for letting the old go and figuring out what this is. That's a bit difficult. Okay. But it's okay. With new life situations, yeah, we need new behaviors in order to sustain it. Okay. And yeah, we need new behaviors to sustain it. And maybe I should also note this, because there's something about, right, the truth of your soul I've been mentioning here. We need new behaviors to sustain a new experience of life, but it doesn't mean new altogether. It means new but still in resonance with the truth of who you are. I believe that there's the truth of every individual. It will always be the same. There's something always true there at the core of our being, and it gets distracted by all of this other stuff. So even though we are formulating, I think, a new identity and a new set of behaviors that really is more restful, relaxing, kind, compassionate, et cetera, at this time, I think there's a need to reconnect back with the truth of who we were before we got complicated by all this other stuff here, in order to bring that forward in this different and better way as well. So maybe that's the last point. This isn't about forgetting who you are and being someone totally different. I think it's a little bit of both. It's like merging who you used to be with who you were in a better way, and like trying to figure that out. And I think that's all I'll say there. Now I'm going to look at your card. Your card is the Six of Swords upright. And we've got the High Priest upright here at the bottom of the deck. The Six of Swords is about coming out of a hard time into a better time. And I do see the High Priest as about also transitions and initiations into different and higher states of being, states of consciousness, states of life. So I definitely do feel like we are, maybe a different way to put it is like we're at the gateway. We're at the gateway. I don't think it's all going to happen at once, but over the course of the next 6 months or so to the next, new moon in Aries, we're at the door, the gateway to a different way of being, a higher level of being here, that I think is going to be more in tune with us, and to see it again as an opportunity. What else do I want to say? I wanted to say, I also said this in another video on my website, because I got this card and like in another video recently, this has been following me around, but that it doesn't have to be perfect, because kindness and compassion and rest and relaxation isn't perfect. But I think that that's another thought that I want to say, is that, yeah, we are in the process of transitioning from an old way of being to a new way of being that's actually more true to who we are, from the beginning, at the very core of our soul, here, which I think is going to open a lot of different doors for us in our life 6 months from now, here, which is very good. But the process could feel messy in between now and then, and let it. It's okay if it feels messy. It doesn't have to be perfect. And a matter of fact, these kind of transitions usually aren't perfect. And to be okay with that, that doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. I think that that's just the way it's meant to be here, as you move forward. So keep that in mind. Let go of these perfectionism of how you want things to play out, so that you can let what needs to emerge from here on out. And I think that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope that you have a good full moon. Make the best out of it that you can here. And I'll talk to you on the next video 2 weeks from now. New moon solar eclipse in Scorpio, which should be a big deal. So have a good one.